I want to thank everybody for coming out this morning, supporting the Bent Mountain Center, the coffee shop, and coming to see this. A lot of you might remember I did a talk like this a couple of years ago. I want to apologize, my jokes have not gotten any better between now and then. So, my name is Glen Mitchell. Most of you know me, but for those who don't, my name is Glen Mitchell. I've been into photography for about 10 or 15 years now. I'm still an amateur enthusiast. I sell pictures on the side and things like that, but I'm an amateur. I started out photography, and I thought I wanted to do animals, but I wasn't sure. And they say to start small. So when I started, I got a macro lens. What a macro lens allows you to do is focus real close up to whatever it is that you're taking pictures of. So let you take pictures of things that are really small. So that's what I did. Spent a lot of time on the ground, looking up at the bottoms of flowers and things like that. And that's how I started. This is an ant on a stem of some kind of flower. I'm not sure what it was. It was eating aphids, and there was like a little grub on the other side of it eating aphids as well.
So ants farm aphids for their honeydew?
Well, this one was eating them. You
Good
can
for
see
them.
drop. I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a drop on one of them. So,
Good. All right.
and when you get down low like that, you discover there's a whole world out there. One time I was down on the ground, and we had some flowers, not remembering what they're called now, but I saw an ant on top of one with the sun in the background, so I got a picture of that.
That was a peony.
Yeah, peony. I apologize, I didn't print out my notes, so I'm looking at my phone, I'm not checking my emails and whatnot, so. Yeah, that was on one of our peonies. Peonies attract ants, so I was able to see a lot of them on there. This is a robber fly, and he was sitting on the edge of one of our tomato cages. They're very, very interesting. You'll see them buzzing around sometimes. They don't, as far as I know, they don't bite people. But if you look at the legs, it has those spikes on its legs. The way it feeds is it will catch an insect midair, and it will use its proboscis there to suck the fluid out of it. So, very interesting. That was one of my earlier photos, and I was pretty happy with that one. I call this one Daydreamer because he's looks like he's thinking of newer and better things, dreaming about his future. That's a jumping spider. You'll see those around a lot. They're some of the cuter little spiders there are.
Have they ever jumped on you?
I've had them jump on me, and I jumped as well, so. This was an ant that was on the bottom of a flower. You can't really see, but up right under the flower, there are more aphids.
Yep.
I called this one pole dancing ant because it looked like it was dancing around a pole, just like a fireman. This one I took right up here in the flower garden. It's either a green bee or a sweat bee. I'm not quite sure of the species. And I don't know what kind of flower that is. Laura would probably be able to tell me. But that was another macro that I took. Does anybody work in flower gardens here? Okay. Do you like marigolds?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'm going to show you why I always wear gloves when I'm working with marigolds. Oops, wrong one. Sorry. This one is an ant. I'm not sure a species of ant, but he was on the flowers right out in our backyard. Viewer discretion advised. This is a little bit creepy. It might give you the heebie-jeebies. But this is why I wear gloves with marigolds. That's a crab spider, and he has caught himself a silver-spotted skipper. So you never know what's in there. And look how perfectly camouflaged that spider is. For anybody that can't see it, that's the spider right there. He looks just like a flower petal. And he's got that silver skipper. some animals have names that don't make sense, like a koala bear is not a bear. But this one has a perfect name because it's a hummingbird clearwing moth. It flies around like a hummingbird, and as you can see, it has clear wings. Sometimes you'll see them around flowers and things like that, and you'll think that they are hummingbirds. Really, really neat to see. There are a couple of different species here. This one's the clear wing, and there's also one called a hawk moth that's very similar to this. They look like, because of their tails, they kind of look like little lobsters too. It's another picture of the same moth. And speaking of hummingbirds, we saw quite a few of them across the road from our house this year. We had kind of an explosion of jewelweed across the road, right in the ditch by our house. They had orange blossoms. Hummingbirds loved them, so I was able to get a lot of pictures of the hummingbirds around those.
What kind of camera do you have to use to get that still motion?
I use a Canon mirrorless camera, and you can use a very high shutter speed. This one was like 1/4000th of a second in order to get the bird there still. Another one that's showing it around the jewelweed. And this is very close to our yard. We see a lot of other little critters in our backyard.
That's Tank.
Now, Susanna will tell you that in order to get this picture, I completely abandoned her statement, which it's not true. Well,
It is true.
It's mostly true, but partly not true. We go out for a walk a lot in the mornings, and we'll go out and walk on the parkway. And this particular morning, we had put our trash down because it's Tuesday. We put our trash down, and I'm convinced that the bears monitor the waste management website. They know when the trash is going to be out there. Came back from the walk, saw our trash down, strewn it in the driveway. Susanna had to get into the house because she had to go back to work. And I said, be careful, that bear is probably still around. So while she was walking up to the house, I cleaned up the trash and, picked it up. And she said, the bear is still back there. So what I did was, I had my camera with me, so I zipped around to the other side of the house and started taking pictures of the bear. Not really remembering that she still had to get into the house.
The bear's looking at me right now.
Right, the bear was kind of looking at her, but the good news is, as you can see, she made it in the house okay and didn't have any problems. This is one of the biggest bears I've seen here in Virginia. I found out later, he's known to the locals, his name is Tank, which is a very appropriate name. And we see a lot of animals right in the backyard. I've got a lot of good photos, and sometimes I'll take photos and just kind of forget about them. I took one a couple of years ago, or I took a bunch a couple of years ago of some deer that were in the backyard. And then a few months ago, I was going through my computer, because we all know how we get the warnings that our hard drives are full. So we've got to get rid of stuff. So I was going through and looking at photos to delete. And I'm really glad that I had never deleted these, because I found one photo that I really loved. It's one of my favorite photos ever. And that's a doe and fawn. We see lots of deer in the backyard, but does anybody need the lights turned down? I didn't think to turn out the lights. Okay.
The deer grew up to eat your flowers,
Oh, they did. I'm sure they did. They decimated flowers, tomatoes, anything that we have out there. And Susanna and I love going kayaking. I love taking photos from a kayak. This was in the Roanoke River where we were paddling. I'd love to tell you that in the background there's some pretty rocks and things like that, but those are actually old tires. So, unfortunately, there's a lot of trash in that river, but there was a beautiful bald eagle that was sitting there. I was able to get some photos of him. And Whenever we walk, I mentioned before that we walk on the parkway a lot. I always take my camera when we do, because I never know what I'm gonna see. So this is one of the cases where I had my camera with me on the parkway. One thing I do want to tell you is a lot of the photos I take here, it's going to look like I was really close, but I take photos with a telephoto lens and I crop them quite a bit. So they appear to be a lot closer than they are. We were actually a pretty good distance from this bear, but we saw him climbing up the tree, so I got some pictures, and we were pretty surprised because he was a pretty healthy sized bear. He was eating cherries or something like that way up in the top of that tree. We couldn't believe that those branches up there would support him, but he knew more about climbing than we did, because he did fine. We watched him for at least half an hour, 45 minutes, and then he finally climbed down. Another photo of the same bear. It was a very bright day. That's why this picture is really bright. And some more reasons why we bring the camera, or I bring the camera when we're on the parkway. You see things like possum. Had to keep the dog away from this one. And had to keep the dog away from this one. This one was more of the challenge. But that's little baby skunk. We see those every once in a while. They're always up there rooting around for grubs or whatever. This cute little guy was on the road. That's a wolf spider. We see them crossing the road every once in a while. And again, just like being closer, he looks a lot bigger here than he actually was. He was about the size of a quarter. Red-winged blackbird, I took that over one of the local farm ponds around here. Every time, whenever we hear the red-winged blackbirds, it's a sign of spring. We just started our first ones out here day before yesterday, so spring's on its way, in theory. We hope. This was on the parkway and one of the snows that we had. Doesn't look so good blown up because it's a little bit blurry, but this was a coyote that was up near the Shaver Cemetery, off of the parkway. And credit goes to Susanna for this one because we were walking up on Poor Mountain and she said that bluebird is right in front of the moon. So I was able to get a shot of the bluebird right in front of the moon. Red-shouldered hawk, this was right over here on Tinsley Road. I'm sure a lot of you saw it every now and then. He was sitting on top of the telephone pole there, eating a meal. I got a lot of other shots of him eating his meal, but you would not want to see it while you're trying to enjoy breakfast and coffee. And a couple of weeks ago, Frank Taylor was here. He did a wonderful talk on newts and salamanders. These are red-spotted newts. We saw these on the Bottom Creek Gorge Trail. There's a nice little pond there, and this was in February, right about this time of the year. And it was a lot warmer last February than it is this February, but they were out there on the log trying to get a little bit of sun.
Is that with your macro lens?
That one was actually with my telephoto lens.
How many yards away do you think that would be?
It was about from me to you, just about, or they were. So, yeah, I zoomed in the 400 millimeter, so I was able to zoom in and get a pretty good close shot. Pretty little bird, right? Nice looking little songbird. This bird is actually a fierce predator. It's called a loggerhead shrike. I don't want to say they're common around here, but we do see them. This one was in Floyd, off of the parkway. Their nickname is the butcher bird. And here it has a little caterpillar. You'll see them a lot around thorns, like thorn bushes and barbed wire fences and things like that. The reason why they're called a butcher bird is they'll use those thorns, they'll catch their prey, impale them on the thorns, and leave them there to eat later. And they don't just eat little caterpillars and grubs, they eat small lizards, mice, other birds. They really deserve their reputation of being a butcher birds.
And when do we have those around here then? Where was that taken?
This one was in Floyd, just before you get to Smartview on the Parkway. There was a pasture there. We saw a rare burbler on the eBird app, and so we were over there to check it out. A lot of you know Alan Austin, he was already there looking for it. Doesn't surprise me, he'll find stuff like that. This picture demonstrates a little bit why it's called the butcher bird, because there it is on the bush, but if you look right here behind the bird, you'll see that he has impaled grubs on the thorns behind him to eat later. So going back, you can see where those grubs have been stashed for later on. I looked around to see if anything else was stashed around, didn't see anything. But we like to travel. A lot of you know I'm from Maine originally, so we like to go up there whenever we can. This was a common loon that was landing on Long Pond in Belgrade, Maine, right in front of where we were staying. We do have common loons down here. We've seen them up while kayaking and things like that. Of course, you've heard their call on any number of TV and movies and things like that. Very ghostly, haunting call. We saw this one from a boat. I had just told it a joke, so enjoying it very much. This is a seagull with a fish called a Manhattan, or also known as a pogie. These fish are a very important resource. They're eaten by birds, other fish, whales, and things like that. So they're a very important resource up in Maine. This particular pogie was having a very bad day because, as you can see, the seagull got it, and that's the same pogie in the talons of this eagle. Same little guy. They basically watched the eagle track down that seagull that's carrying the fish, harass it, made it drop the fish, and then he took off with it. Okay, and while we were up in Maine, I had the opportunity to take a puffin tour, a puffin boat tour, to a place called Seal Island National Wildlife Refuge. The tour boat left from Isle La Ho in Maine. Isle La Ho is a French word. It means place from where the puffin tour boat takes off from. So we go out to this island. It's a rock island, and schools and universities and other entities use it to study puffins. Puffins go there in the spring and the summer to nest and raise their young. They also study all sorts of other birds out there, like terns and things like that. These are some of the Atlantic puffins. Atlantic puffins are only on land during spring and summer. The rest of the time, they're out to sea. They go out in the middle of the Atlantic and feed and things like that. So these were several of the puffins that were on the island. This is one of the observation towers that they use to study the terns and the puffins. Now, what had happened was in the 1970s, they found that there weren't any puffins off the coast of Maine, or very few, that were nesting. So they started a program where they started bringing puffins in from Newfoundland and eastern Canada to nest. And eventually, after a while, after they'd introduced a few, and they put like puffin decoys out and things like that, eventually the puffins came. So that's been a very good success story to have the puffins come back and nest on the islands off the coast of Maine. This is a puffin that was taking off in the water. The puffins are only about yay big, just a little bit bigger than a pigeon. Okay, this is a very misleading photo because This looks like the puffin was just kind of lazily soaring around, but that's not the case at all. These guys fly at 55 miles an hour, and he was going by the boat, so I had to really quickly take shots and do a high shutter speed. That one was 1/2500th of a second, so I was happy to get him. The island is also surrounded by gray seals and harbor seals. Gray seals are mostly found in the North Atlantic. They grow up to 7 feet long, and they dive to 200 feet to get their prey. They feed on fish, other things, and yes, they will feed on puffins if they're able to catch one that's on the surface. Another photo of the gray seal. And if you ever take any kind of nature excursion boat off the coast of Maine, they're going to show you seal haulouts for harbor seals. That's where the seals all get together and just rest on the rocks. A lot of rocky islands, small little islands out there, and the seals go out to those. Close up of some of the harbor seals. Harbor seals kind of look like a cross between people and dogs. Those are very common off the coast of Maine. I think we have some down here as well, but not as many. We also went to Florida early in the year, last year. This is called a black skimmer, and they feed, another one with a perfect name because they feed by skimming the surface of the water. Their lower bill is longer than their upper bill, so they just skim that lower bill, and when they encounter something to eat, a small fish or bugs or something like that, they'll just snatch it up. Another black skimmer. This was a little egret. I believe it's a cattle egret, but I'm not sure. He was in the road there. One of the most important skills that a photographer can have is timing. Had I been half a second earlier, you would have seen a beautiful tricolored heron sitting there. Doesn't always work out. And of course, being Florida, you're going to see alligators. These were at Merritt Island National Wildlife Refuge. If you're ever down in Florida, this is near the Cape Canaveral area, Kennedy Space Center. Highly recommend it. They have a wildlife drive. You can see all sorts of birds and alligators and things like that. And speaking of alligators, I was talking to Carl earlier. This was taken at Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge in North Carolina. And it's on the way. If you're ever going to the Outer Banks, you've probably been right by it. Highly recommend this place. It's a series of not only swampy forests, but it's also large crop fields, soybeans, things like that. And the bears will come out into the fields and enjoy the soybeans, especially in the morning and the evening. This guy kind of looks like he might have seen better days, but he's one of the bigger old bears that we saw. And the fields are surrounded by canals. So in order to get to the fields or back to the woods, they have to cross through the canal. So one time we saw a bear coming, I got down by the canal, which was kind of treacherous in itself, to get in position. And I saw this guy climb down into the canal and then swim across. And then afterwards, he climbed out of the canal and shook off. So, highly recommend Alligator River. It's only 6 hours from here, but you see lots of wildlife there. It's one of my favorite places.
Oh, wow.
This was a barred owl that Susanna spotted. When she first saw it, it was right near one of the canals, right near the water. Because believe it or not, these owls will catch frogs, crayfish, things like that. Anything that they can get, found commonly around water. But this one flew up, and I was able to get a photo of him there. This photo, not the best photo. It's out of focus. You know, the color's not good on it. It's blurry and grainy. but it was taken at almost dark, and this is a red wolf. This is one of the last remaining red wolves in the wild. There are only 20 of them or so right now. In 1987, these wolves used to be all over the southeast, all over, but they were pretty much eradicated. In 1987, they got a population of wolves from Louisiana, Arkansas, Texas, that they were still living wild, and they brought them to Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge and one other refuge close by. They reintroduced them. The population grew at first. They had over 100, but that population is dwindling now because of hunting. People think they're coyotes. I don't know if you can see this well or not, but they look a lot like coyotes, so people shot them for being coyotes.
Looks like you got a collar.
It does have a collar.
Okay.
Every one of the wolves there have big tracking collars on them. And right in front of the Alligator River Wildlife Refuge, anybody that's been to the Outer Banks, you might know there's Highway 64 that goes through there. Big, long, flat stretch surrounded by swamp. So people think there's nothing out there. I can hammer it just like they do here on 221. And they go down that road very fast. Unfortunately, the wolves cross there and they don't need to cross. So the numbers are dwindling, but this particular pack, it's called the Milltail pack, they're doing pretty well. And we were very happy just to see the wolves at all. So I wanted to share that with you. Now, you might be asking, Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge, are there alligators there, North Carolina? There are. We saw this one while we were kayaking there. They do have a population of American alligators, probably not as big as the ones you'll see in Florida, but they're a lot smaller, but they do live here. They have to deal with cold a lot more than alligators down there will. Okay, and I don't just take pictures of animals. This was a comet that we had last year. This comet is called Chuchinsan Atlas, which, if you ask me if I practiced saying that word, I sure did. Starts with TSHU, and then there are a lot of random letters after that. So, Chuchinsan Atlas. You might recognize this place. This is taken on the Parkway, and in the foreground is the Mount Olivet Baptist Church over here. I also try astrophotography and Milky Way photos. That's the Milky Way at Smart View. If you know where Smart View is off of the Parkway, there's a cabin there. So I was able to it's hard to get a good angle there because of all the trees and everything, but I was able to get just the right angle. Yeah, great spot for picnics, and we walk our dogs there a lot. It's a great place there. Now, one of the things I noticed when I took this, there's a little streak there, which at first I thought it might be a shooting star or something like that, but it turns out it's called a satellite flare. And terrible picture, but here's an extreme close-up of that satellite flare. What happens is the satellite's going through the sky. Its flat surfaces will catch the sunlight just right, and it will just cause a reflection. So you see the path of the satellite there, and the fat part where it caught the sunlight. Do a little bit of storm chasing, not much, but this was taken off the Parkway a couple of years ago during a thunderstorm. One case where I did have really good timing, and you'll kind of see that there's like a straight line going down the middle. I wondered what that was. At first I thought, maybe I'm catching the light as it's traveling away from the lightning. But then I thought, light travels at 186,000 miles a second. I didn't catch the light traveling. That's just some sort of an anomaly with the light hitting the sensor. I think it just took a second to record the light, and that's why you see that kind of darkish line down the side there. This is a barred owl that was taken up on Honeysuckle Road on Poor Mountain. If you've ever been up there, or if you've never been up there, I encourage you to go drive the road up there. It's by where all the towers are. It's a Virginia bird and wildlife trail called the Poor Mountain Ridgeline Drive. Very important for not only the birds and mammals that are up there, but there are also lots of milkweed up there and things like that for butterflies, and you see lots of songbirds in spring and things like that. This was also up on Poor Mountain. I took that from the truck. He stood there for a while, let me take pictures of him. If you notice, it's hard to see, but his right eye is kind of gunked up. Deer have a gland, it's called a preorbital gland or a lacrimal gland. When they're rutting, bucks rub those on all sorts of trees and things like that. They also have glands on their back legs and things, just to let the other bucks know that they're there and let the does know that they're there. I imagine this one might have just injured his eye a little bit while rubbing or something like that. These were right in front of our house on Rocky Road on the side, just bear prints. We saw quite a few of those this past year. This was taken on Poor Mountain Road, you know where the power line comes through there. That's Mama Bear. She was the first bear I ever got a picture of standing up. Want to reiterate, this is another one of those where I was a lot farther away than this picture makes it appear. She had 2 little cubs with her, which I wanted to get a good picture of the cubs themselves, but I only got fleeting glimpses, and I got one of that little guy. That was the only one I got. I was hoping for more, but wasn't able to. Another bear up on Poor Mountain. Bear licking a tree. Now, last April into May, there was an explosion of little inchworms. I don't know what kind of caterpillars they were, somebody might have been able to take, but they were all coming down on their silk strands from the tree. You couldn't walk through them without getting them in your face and hair. Or, I was driving, they were all over my windshield, and it was pretty terrible to walk through. But the bears were coming out and they were licking them off the trees. So we were able to see quite a few bears there. And this one was licking tree. I always joke, this one looks like he's having a senior yearbook photo taken. And this bear, another case where I wasn't as close as it appears. My truck was very close by while I took pictures of this bear. Because I saw it feeding out in the field, so I parked my truck, got out, and went kind of behind a tree to take pictures. Always bearing it, always keeping in mind where my truck was, because I figured if the bear started coming towards me, that I'd be able to hop in the truck. There are 2 problems with that. Bears can close the distance very, very fast, very quickly. The other problem with that is the photographer in me would see the bear coming at me and not see it as a life-threatening problem. I'd see it as a photography problem. I'd be like, okay, it's coming at me, I've got to increase my shutter speed here. So, but this bear, with this bear, I had my 500 millimeter lens, which is my biggest lens, weighs something like 13 pounds. I watched this bear for about half an hour, so my shoulder was absolutely wrecked after that, but it was worth it. Every once in a while she'd stand up, he or he would stand up, just look around. I was able to get this photo, and then I was able to get this photo, which is one of my favorites. This was another one where fortunate timing. We were up there taking pictures. There were some cedar waxwings in the top of the tree, and Susanna said, "Hey, there's a scarlet tanager in the middle." So I had just brought my camera over and just got focused on that scarlet tanager, and he took off. when he took off, it scattered all of the scarlet tanagers.
Oh, the cedar.
All of the
Cedar waxwings.
waxwings. Yeah, so you can see that's the scarlet tanager there, and those are the cedar waxwings. This is also up on Met Mountain. That's a juvenile bald eagle. This little guy is a brown creeper. They're very well camouflaged, but you'll see them going up the side of a tree. They are similar to a nuthatch. Have you ever seen a nuthatch going up and down a tree? They're very similar. Brown creepers mostly go up though. They don't go down like the nuthatches do. And they feed off little insects and things that they find in the bark. That's a big brown bat. We saw him at Carlin's Cove, right out in the middle of the day. We were getting ready to launch kayaks, and there are some reeds in the water, and I saw him fly out of the reeds, and he flew past me and landed in a tree, and that's when I was able to take this picture. So you do see them out during the day sometimes, so I was lucky to see this guy. As I said before, we like to go kayaking a lot, so we see a lot of wildlife doing that. This is a beaver. This beaver followed us around quite a while. He just kind of hung out where we were. Beavers will come check you out, make sure you're not any kind of a threat. And when they do consider something to be a threat, they'll slap their tails in the water and dive. So every once in a while, it sounds like somebody threw a big rock in the water. It'll slap its tail on the water and dive. We see a lot of those at Prairie Stone State Park. I didn't include any pictures in here, but we see a lot of otters there as well. Those are some of my favorite animals to take photos of. This is why I like to have a camera that can shoot 12 frames per second.
Wow.
Wow.
This was on Poor Mountain Road. I usually don't like including somebody's house or anything in the background, but I couldn't pass up that shot, so. And last year, Tim and Patty Vi invited me over to their farm pond to take pictures, because, you know, I'm always good for sitting by a pond and take one. This is a big raccoon that came out. He was just wandering the shoreline, so I got photos of that. Primarily what I was after were swallows. The barn swallows will fly over the top of the water and skim and eat bugs and stuff like that, like the skimmer that I was telling you about before. This one was 1/4000th of a second. They are very fast. They're even smaller than the puffins and just as fast, so pretty challenging shot. So we've got a few more here. This is a screech owl, in case you can't see it. The screech owl is right here. This was taken in Daleville at the, it's called the Greenfield area. There's like a little pond with a walking trail along, the cherry blossom trail. He was in there. Same tree, different owl. There were 2 screech owls living in that tree. So, okay. And I got a couple more, but after I'm done with it, I'm open to any questions, so please feel free. The following is one of the coolest things I've seen. I got a call from Ed Kinzer last October saying that down on Coles Road down here, the field was full of monarch butterflies that were migrating. And he knew from experience that if they were there during the day, they would roost in the trees at night. So a group of us went down and was looking at the trees, and the big tree down there was full of monarch butterflies. One of the absolute coolest things I've ever seen. So went there for 2 nights and was able to see quite a few of them. This was in early October, October the 6th, and then a couple days later they were all gone. they had moved on. They migrate to Mexico every year. They all migrate to a central place in Mexico, out deep in the forest there, and then you know, they stay there for the winter. So that's all the photos I have. So if anybody wants to see any of the other photos again or any questions, feel free. Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
Have you ever seen porcupine here?
Not down here. Where I'm from in Maine, they're just like the possums are here. You'll see them by the road, you know, all the time, but you'll see them up in trees and things like that. So somewhere there's a porcupine possum line where it stops seeing one and starts seeing the other. Never seen any down here. There are porcupines down here, just never seen any. I'd love to see one though.
Who
Yes.
runs faster, you or Susanna?
I drop the gear, he doesn't.
She's smart enough to run. I'm dumb enough to stand there and take pictures. But
So, and are you self-taught or have you taken classes? I mean, it's beautiful work.
I've taken nothing really formal. Ron and TK here might remember when the camera club used to had what's called a photography boot camp, where a couple of the more senior members of the camera club had a course that taught you the basics. So you learn the basics, but most of this is self-taught, YouTube taught, trial and error and error and error. One thing you don't see with these photos is the number of bad ones I took. For every good picture I take, I've got 100 that ends up getting deleted. So, but yes, it's been basically just mostly experience.
You've got a great eye.
Oh, thank you, thank you. I did another presentation here a couple of years ago that had a lot of different photos in it. A lot of those photos are on, I do have a website and a couple of different websites. Let's see if I had a, no, I didn't put it on here. But I've got business cards back there by Beth on that table that has the different ways that you can reach out and see pictures. Right now, I don't sell prints online. I might be doing that in the future. I did bring some prints and some calendars here today where it's March tomorrow, but you still can get 2026 calendars from me if you'd like. And yeah, I've got some prints over here. I'll be setting those up, so anybody wants to take a look at those, more than welcome. Yeah.
Glenn, can you talk about like how much you use or if you use at all, like post-processing to make these pictures look good, or do they come out of the box like this and how that whole process works?
Excellent questions. Every one of these photos that I've taken have been processed to some point. The goal that I have when I process is to make it look like it looked as I saw it. Try to match the colors up and the brightness as well as I can. The way I do photography is I shoot in what's known as RAW, which it just takes in all of the light, doesn't process it at all. It lets me do all the processing. That way I can make sure the colors are right and things like that. What I don't do is I don't add any elements into the thing. Like if I said, well, this would look nice if there was a sunset behind it or something like. I don't do anything like that. I don't take too much out of it. Pretty much if there's a stick in the way, I live with it, despite the temptation. People do various amounts of editing on them, but my goal is to make it look like it did when I saw it. And every one of these photos you've just seen are processed. Yeah.
You had a really close call with an animal that would be interesting to talk about.
I haven't really had any close calls. I've gotten a lot closer than I wanted to. She has a differing opinion about rattlesnakes, but there have been a couple of times where there was a rattlesnake up on Poor Mountain. There have been times I've seen water moccasins on the road in Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge. And I get down low and I kind of take pictures of it. And she judges the snake to be within striking distance and things like that. So she gets very nervous about it. So. Yep.
Is he the guy that protects you from being struck? Like, I think you're in the camera mode, you're not in the brain mode.
I'm almost always in camera mode, so.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, I'm usually between whatever animal it is and Susanna, so.
That's all that matters.
Yeah, I did have on Bottom Creek Gorge, I didn't get any good pictures, they all came out real blurry. But I was walking on Bottom Creek Gorge Trail, last year, and I came probably from here to the end of that table from a bear that was feeding behind a bush, and I didn't know it was there. By the time I saw it there, of course, instead of turning around, like I should, brought the camera up, but the bear sensed I was there first and ran off, but that's probably the closest call I've had. So,
Does your camera make noise?
a little bit of noise, does make a little bit of noise. So the older ones I had made a lot more noise than this one, but that's something I'm always cognizant of. This goes with what I was saying about being farther away than it looks. I never want to bother the animal if I can avoid bothering it. If I can take pictures of an animal and doesn't even know that I'm there, that's ideal, or if it doesn't care I'm there. But also, I don't want the sound of my shutter bothering it, because I have had cases where taking pictures of a bird or something like that, it hears the shutter and it changes its behavior because of that. Yeah,
Snakes? You take any snake pictures?
I do.
You try to stay away from them, right?
If I see them, no, I don't really try to stay away from them. I don't have it in this presentation, but I've got a picture of a rattlesnake. It's on my website, so you'll be able to see it.
Is that on top of the mountain?
On top of Poor Mountain up here, there was a big timber rattler going across the road.
Wow.
I sat down and took a picture of it, heard lots of shrieking. I didn't know what it was, turned out it was my wife. She was shrieking because I was there taking pictures of the rattlesnake.
How far?
Probably about 15 feet, 20 feet. Yeah, fast enough that it turned towards me, I'd be able to get up out.
Was he curled?
No, he was right out flat, straight.
Okay. And he was coming to see you, right?
Right, he was going straight across, so. Yeah, if they're curled up, I don't get close at all, that's for sure. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, young man. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Appreciate it.